just moving on from the previous class, uh, just quickly revising whatever we had discussed, the very important take home points. So we spoke about screening early for nutritional risk and the importance of the M-Nutric score and how you uh, identify high risk patients and how they benefit from early nutritional support. We spoke about enteral nutrition and how it is always the first line, how you should always use the gut whenever possible, and how enteral nutrition should usually be started within 24 to 48 hours if the gut remains functional and the patient remains adequately resuscitated. Protein is more important than calories early. So always aim for 1.2 to 1.3 grams per kg per day early, with higher targets in certain selected groups like burns patients, trauma, obesity, and patients on CRRT. We spoke about the concept of permissive underfeeding in the first few days, how it is definitely, if not reducing mortality, at least helping in certain other outcomes, and it's definitely acceptable provided you're meeting the protein requirement. Do not delay enteral nutrition unnecessarily for certain parameters like a low dose ongoing vasopressors, or for proning the patient, or even for mild hemodynamic instability. 65-year-old patient is on day 4 of mechanical ventilation. The patient is at a high risk of VAP. As per present guidelines, what should be the role of probiotics in this patient? Right? Would you give them
No
probiotics?
routine use.
Sorry?
No routine use.
Very good, very good, very good. So as long as you know this, you're good to go for the exam. So guidelines clearly say that there's no routine use for probiotics, right? I don't know what your practice is, what you guys practice, but guidelines are very clear, right? Only in select patients you can use it conditionally. Absolutely no routine use. The Aspen and Aspen both say this. Okay, so they are safe. Yes, it's not like probiotics would cause a lot of harm unless the patient is severely immunocompromised or unless they're neonates. But there's no definite benefit routinely. So there may be certain candidates where you might have again a lower threshold of giving them probiotics, like patients who are on long-term mechanical ventilations or are on broad spectrum antibiotics. But in the future, we definitely need strain specific trials. But by and large, there's no routine use of probiotics. Okay. Critical ill patient is receiving propofol at 25 ml per hour. Okay, 25 ml per hour as a continuous infusion. Which of the following is most accurate when calculating nutritional intake for this patient?
60 kilocalorie per day because it contains fat.
Right. Can you tell me
Outside
roughly how much
pro
calories propofol gives? Just roughly.
1.1 kilocalorie per kg.
Oh, very good. Very good. Excellent. So, like this patient's receiving a significant amount of propofol, so you have to calculate this in your energy equation. Usually, we don't give our patients 25 ml of propofol per hour, but you have to know. So propofol contains 1.1 kilocalorie of per ml from lipid emulsion. So hidden non-nutritional calories are very, very important. These can contain calories from medication. A lot of medications can contain dextrose, which also give the patient calories, and also certain fluids that you might be giving the patient for other reasons may also be contributing to the total energy intake and may lead to unrecognized overfeeding. So very important to identify this. Dextrose containing IV fluids are also often a big problem. And remember, even if you're doing CRRT and giving the patient citrate or even glucose from the dialysate, they may also affect the net caloric balance. So nutrition in CRRT is very important. Certain basic concepts are very important. Remember, patients who are receiving CRRT experience, like I said, an ongoing loss of nutrients, especially a lot of amino acids, trace elements, and also water soluble vitamins. So protein requirements, remember, during CRRT are higher than in non-dialysis AKR, even in other forms of dialysis. Okay, so there are certain electrolytes which you have to monitor daily because these electrolytes are often replenished or lost during CRRT, like phosphate, magnesium, potassium, and patients on prolonged CRRT may require replacement of trace elements, thiamine, and water soluble vitamins. Okay. What's a practical protein target? 1.5 to 2 grams per kg per day. But this has to again depend on the overall catabolic state and the ongoing losses. You can sometimes push the patient to refeeding. It obviously increases the nursing workload. Okay, and there is no definite clear outcome difference with doing this, right? But it is a practice that is slowly catching up, and they can again test it in the exam. So volume-based feeding protocol, you told me quite clearly what it is and how you do it. Is basically a nurse driven catch-up protocol, right? So like you said, if the feed is stopped for some reason, okay, you have to make up for that in the next hours, as opposed to what we usually do is just to restart the feed, because in such a situation you would be depriving this patient of proteins and calories. Okay, fixing the volume that has to be given to the patient at a particular over a day, right? Irrespective of whether feeds were stopped or not. So if you are holding feeds for some reason, you have to make up for it, right? So this allows the missed volume to be fully compensated over the remaining hours of the day, instead of simply restarting feeds at the original hourly rate. So obviously the benefits are that it improves calorie and protein deficit, it reduces cumulative nutrition deficit, and it is also a nurse-driven feeding protocol. But like I said, the disadvantages are you can often end up overfeeding the patient. It also increases the workload. And as of now, there's no definite, uh, clear outcome benefit with this protocol.